What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Raw Faith. Man, I had to dust off this seat. Feel like we haven't been in the saddle of Raw Faith for a while. At least haven't gotten an episode out in a while. We had a little technical difficulties. The devil, the enemy, is attacking the series we're doing with Mitch on money, just getting the truth around biblical financial stewardship, getting that out here pretty soon, so you guys can expect a series coming around what the Bible actually says about money. But today we're going to be talking about a controversial tweet that I put out. I don't think it's very controversial, but it's a big question, and I would say in the standard media, let's say, it's probably the number one question that gets used to challenge Christians in their belief in God. And that question we'll start with, throw that out there. If God is real, why do bad things happen to good people? So, if you guys can see my phone here, I tweeted this, a thread on why I thought, what the scenario was here from a biblical perspective. And yeah, a lot of comments, a lot of perspectives. So, we're going to be diving into that today. But, Peter, what's good, brother?
What's happening, man? Incredible question to ask and dive into, but I think the main question that people are really waiting for is, what episode number are we on?
No idea. I figured. If you had a guess, what would it be?
15?
Ooh, maybe.
It's got to be close.
I think I would say 14.
Okay.
We'll see. Right. We'll check back at the end. Well, sure. People watching this will know, so, man.
Absolutely.
But let's dive in, man. Let's just dive off the deep end here. If God is real, why do bad things happen to good people? When that question is just asked, like, what's your just like knee jerk? Like, let's not get in too deep, but what's just like your knee jerk, like, response?
Yeah. So I was asked this question multiple months ago at one of our events, actually, and it used to be like I would put up a wall because I wouldn't necessarily know the right answer to say.
Yeah.
But now I kind of get excited because, especially the more I dive into my own testimony and share that, I feel that I can really relate to people and kind of what they're asking it for. What's the deep rooted meaning behind their question? So now it's mostly excitement. But what about you?
Yeah, honestly, like it's a question I hadn't really wrestled with at all until I went to write this. Till I was like, okay, what's a big question that people ask? I want to give my take and develop a perspective. So I hadn't really wrestled it until this. Now, like, just knee jerk is like, this world ain't that deep. Like, just what's happening here ain't that deep, which, not that that's the truth necessarily, but like, there's so much bigger with that eternal perspective that's going on. Like, God sees so much more than we do. And so it's just like that I guess is my knee jerk, just like lack of perspective, if that's your question. So yeah. So I wrote this thread, and I'll just get into the points, and we're just going to kind of break it down point by point here. And then we're going to get into the number one like rebuttal people had. And P-Dog quite literally has personal testimony and experience to their number one rebuttal with something tragic that has happened in his life. That he's going to be able to speak to firsthand. So we're going to get into that here in a minute. But my point number one was, if God is real, why do bad things happen to good people? I said, no person is good. Only God is. And of course, we can quote the scripture around this. I think it says it in multiple spots. But I quoted Mark 10:18 from the NIV. And this is Jesus literally saying, why do you call me good? Jesus answered, no one is good except God alone. So that was my thing of like, we are all sinners. We are all broken. We've all made mistakes. No one is good. So it's like, that is my number one, just simple, logical answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see it from the very beginning of time. In the beginning, God created man and woman along with the creation of the earth. And in the perfect place, the Garden of Eden, they literally had all the choices to choose to obey God and remain in perfect relationship with him, or the one choice to eat from the tree. And they still chose that. And possibly the easiest setting to choose God in. It's ultimately just human nature. But I kind of got a question for you. I'm sorry to hit you on the spot, but did God
So
make us? I mean, I say that's human nature. Like, do you think God made us in that way, or do you just think it's naturally just the free will that He gave us? If that
God
makes
made
sense.
us the human nature to like just like do what we're like don't touch the stove type deal, like touch the
Right? Yeah,
stove.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
um I mean, yeah, I think I don't know how we could argue that God didn't make us that way because it happened literally in the presence of God in the garden.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just God clearly made us that way. I think because it literally happened. You know, the first ever humans to people did it. So it's like they were the first created, and I think that that's a foundational piece that people need to understand with this. And that was kind of my second point, my thread was this event known as the fall of man, is how it's commonly referred to. And what P Dog's saying here is God creates Adam because God wants to be in a relationship with Adam, and because we serve a relational God. And then God sees that Adam needs a partner, so He takes the rib out of Adam and creates Eve, and that's how you have Adam and Eve. And then He tells them, "Don't eat the fruit from the forbidden tree." And what do? Eve eats the fruit, and then tells Adam to eat the fruit, and then boom, a serpent actually convinced and closed Eve on eating the fruit. So that was kind of like the start to this whole thing. And that is why we got excluded from God's presence, was God can't have sin in His presence. So I think, my second point, like God created us to be in that perfect place with Him in His presence. We are the ones who broke that with the fall of man by sinning, like you're saying. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to really give context to what we're talking about. But
100%.
so like, yeah, I think it is human nature, I guess. And it's like I think the serpent plays a role in that too. Like I think that's the devil at work. Like I think that that's what that early story is alluding to in the beginning. Like the snakes of this world, the devil working in this world, um, to get us to try to fall and disobey. At the end of the day, like that's just disobedience. And I thought something that was cool as well is God cast them out because if they were to stay there in that eternal space, they would be perpetually broken, eternally broken. And I think that that is a really cool point for people to know. Like, God cast them out because if they ate the fruit and stayed in that place, then they were forever living in sin. And He
Yeah.
didn't want them to have that for eternity. So He cast them out, which is kind of cool. It's cool. I think it's really cool to dive into.
Absolutely.
So I don't
Absolutely.
know if I answered your question at all, but
No, I mean you did for sure.
so there's my point too, I guess. Anything you want to unpack around that event, Fall of Man?
I'm kind of looking into now. I mean, the only thing I want to add is when Adam and Eve chose to eat the fruit and let the sin into the world. That involves all the bad things that happen, and essentially what we're going to dive into here. I just want to double down on that. Before then, it was the perfect place, and there necessarily wasn't any sin. There wasn't any. I don't know about pain, but just suffering, things of that nature. And then when it got let into the world, that like it came with it. Cancer, events like the Holocaust, war, all of the sin. So I just wanted to double down on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I think point three is something that was brought to me recently by my man Joseph. Shout out to that guy. Just this is an understanding of God's character, and I feel like as a new believer, it's kind of hard to really try to fully understand God's character. Like for me, getting in, and I feel like for most people becoming a believer, it's all about God's love and His grace. And I feel like my point three was also about God's character, about how He is fair and just as well.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole point with that was, like we just talked about, like God never intended for it to be this way. Like he created us in that perfect place in his presence. Sin is what broke that and exiled us from that place. And now what we're trying to do is get back to that place, which we can talk about a little bit further how that's done. But
Hmm.
so we're trying to get back to that place. So God is fair and just, and what that means is the punishment like has to be paid. Like you can't sin and there be no consequence for that sin. Like he is a fair and just God, and um, you want to give your example of the judge?
Yeah, dude,
Uh,
I love
that makes
telling
that's
this.
good. People understand that.
Yeah, 100%. Because I've dealt with this question. It wasn't until recently, seek and you shall find. I asked out loud, prayed to God, and asked others, and then came across this story. And it is a perfectly characterized judge, right? He is all the way just, and he is also made up of love as well. So his daughter gets a speeding ticket. His daughter comes into court. The judge is up on his pedestal, and the judge essentially says, "All right, the charge is speeding ticket. Do you plead guilty?" She says, "Guilty." And the judge says, "All right, either 10 days in jail or $200 fine that you can pay." And from there, the judge takes off his cap, takes off his robe, steps down from his pedestal into her place, and pays the fee for her. And that is exactly what God has done for us. He didn't break who he was. He was still just and he's still loving. And by doing that, he stepped down in human form, such as Jesus, and paid the price for us, so that we're not, destined to hell, essentially.
Yeah. And so I think this how someone might be saying like how does that pertain to like why do bad things happen to good people? Well, if we look at what was happening before Jesus in the Old Testament, before God stepped down as man and came and paid that sacrifice for us, paid the consequences for us. And you may also be asking like why does there have to be a consequence if God is so powerful? Well, that's what makes it valuable. Like in your scenario with the speeding ticket, like the laws aren't valuable if they're just bendable. Like if it's just like, oh, it doesn't matter, then it's just like there's nothing of value. If there's no truth, if there's no hard lines, then it's not valuable. If it can be changed, there's no value. It's not truth. So it's like it has to stay truth. You have to play within the rules, I guess. But God paid it for us. And so how does that pertain to why do bad things happen? In the Old Testament, before Jesus was sent to die for our sins on the cross, people would die for their mistakes that they made. Eating that fruit, sin leads to death, which leads to
Sure.
hell. Like, so people are condemned to hell for sinning. And as we stated with point one, we are all sinners. How did sin start? The fall of man. And then point three, like, why does that even matter? It's because God is fair and just, so the punishment has to be paid. So he sent his son to die for us so that we can continue living despite our sin, and he gave us the way back into that perfect place, such as the Garden of Eden, also known as heaven. So it's like God is so good, and bad things may happen to us here on this earth, but we are all sinners. We are all broken. We are all not good. But He is so good that He compensated all of that brokenness by sending His Son to die, so that we could still have a way back to His presence, to that perfect place that has no suffering, no struggle, no cancer, no disease, no nothing.
Yes.
So that is how that pertains. I feel like some people in the comments were like, how does this like pertain to the question? I'm like,
Right.
so that is how it pertains. It doesn't really like answer the question as to like why do bad things happen here on earth. I don't think
Right.
anyone like has an answer to that question, which we're gonna get into. I think we all could have perspectives and different things, but I don't think we know the truth as to why bad things happen. But we can see the path still laid out to get to what really matters.
Yes.
Despite our brokenness, God compensated it. Am I like all over the place, or am I talking
No,
good stuff here?
I think you explained that perfectly.
Cool. And that takes me to point four. And point four is like I put in the thread like 1, 2, and 3 are not going to make sense to you at all unless you have this perspective, and that is eternal perspective. So, and this is one of my biggest points with this that drives this answer home. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, it's like you're looking at it from such a limited perspective, and that's why I said that in the beginning. If you look at it from an eternal perspective, that we are promised eternal life in a perfect place, something we cannot fathom. We cannot fathom how perfect, blissful, amazing heaven is, and we cannot fathom eternity.
Yep.
You and I have been alive for a combined 40, little over 40 years. It's like it seems like forever. Can't fathom eternity, So God has, no matter what happens here on earth, God has compensated for our brokenness and given us an opportunity to go spend eternity in a perfect place with Him. So I think having that perspective of if I get cancer, if someone in my family dies, if whatever, if I lose all my money, bankruptcy, whatever, I get raped, like that stuff is horrible. I'm not saying it's just like, okay, fine and dandy. It's horrible. We're about to get into Paden's firsthand experience of it. It's not fun. It's not good. But if it happens and we can still spend eternal life despite this short 90-year life or 10-year life or whatever we're lucky enough to live here on earth, like that's so small in comparison to eternity in a perfect place with God that has no pain, no suffering, no struggle. Like, so it's hard to wrap our head around. Right. I can't really wrap my head around it. I'm trying, every day, and obviously we're working towards it, but I'm trying to really get that across. And one point that I think is valid to bring up right now is one guy, he was basically saying like, all this is great logically, but this is not going to speak to people who actually have this question because they don't believe that this is truth. And I was like, that's a really good point. So it was, it's been fun, which we're going to get into. But any thoughts on just eternal perspective?
No, I mean, just simply that's where the faith comes in. Yeah, I mean, if you try to look at it from a logical standpoint, just that lens, like it's not going to work, and you're going to go insane, especially for the people who are going through quote unquote bad things. What we're talking about here, you got to have faith to keep your sanity.
Yeah, and I think like look at the flip side of that for people. Like people want to say they don't have faith. Like, and that was even one of the comments. I need to just go to the comments, man. But let's just start with the top rebuttal comment we got. And I would say the top rebuttal to this conversation overall is children. People want to bring up children. That 2-year-old innocent kid who has done nothing in his life. How does a bad thing happen to him? And one of the comments specifically read, I am a Christian and everything you said I agree with, but I still struggle on why bad things happen to good people. Stop there. Glad that they put that out there because we all do. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying if a bad thing happened to my life, I wouldn't struggle. It'd be all peace and blissful. And I'm like, oh God, eternal heaven. We'll be there one day. It's fine. Like, just give my family cancer because it doesn't matter. Eternity. Like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm still going to struggle here on earth. So glad that person put that. But they said, like a happy, innocent 5-year-old kid having to die of horrible cancer and for no reason, or same age kid that got raped recently. So I struggle with that. And as soon as I read this, I sent it to Paden because happy, innocent 5-year-old kid having to die of horrible cancer. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah, he sent it to me and I had tears in my eyes immediately because for anyone that's watched our episodes before, I've spoken on this, but that is exactly what happened to my family. My little brother, 4 years old, At the time I was 13, he got diagnosed with cancer. Started with a limp in his leg, which within a matter of a week and a half progressed to him being paralyzed from the neck down, and med flighted to a hospital 3 hours away, hooked up to monitors, not being able to move, in hospital bed. And throughout that process, he was in the hospital battling this cancer for multiple months, 4 months to be exact. And throughout this time, I know my parents asked the same thing, but I just asked God, like, why is this happening to my little brother? He's 4 years old, just such a pure and innocent child. Why is this happening to my family? And I put this in the response to this guy on Twitter, but the hard truth is we won't ever know why it happened. Hard truth is we're never going to know here on earth why he chose to intercede on certain things or why he didn't choose to intercede, why my little brother ended up passing away to cancer after those 4 months. Specifically thinking from an earthly standpoint, he didn't intercede and he lost the battle to cancer, right? Those are my immediate thoughts when I was sitting in the hospital room the day he passed away. But my mindset was shifted, thankfully, because my parents were rooted in Christ, and they had such a strong faith. And two specific reasons allowed us to stay faithful, to keep our sanity, and just to continue sharing his story and remaining optimistic. And number one, the truth is he did win, because we know that he's in heaven right now, that eternal perspective, like you mentioned in your point number 4. Like, not only did he win, but he's up in heaven, like running around right now, having the time of his life in his eternal home. So number one, he did win. And number two, my parents in particular, and the community we had around us, we were able to see through the fog and see through the negatives of this because of our faith. And we did that because we were able to sit and ask God, what good does come from this? How are you going to use this for good? Because it is happening. And through that, he was able to use Cooper's story to lead multiple people to Christ, to share his testimony to thousands in our community, and strengthen many people's faith as well. So, dude, so much good comes out of the bad if you just simply ask God, like, how can he use it for good?
Yeah. And I mean, look at this, like this episode alone, or that response you were able to give on Twitter. Like, is it like an equal trade in your heart and your mind? No, never going to be. But it's like something happened. We don't know why. Like you're saying, God didn't intercede and save his life. But it's like, man, here we are. Here's the pieces. Here's what God has given us. Let's continue to move. Like, this is all we can do. And so you can, and we've talked about it, like how this story is just going to be shared with millions. Like, you have the opportunity to share his testimony in this story to bring millions to salvation, like to save millions. Like, it can be a seed that's planted for God to grow, of course. We're not the ones saving anybody, but we can plant the seed with the story of people who have gone through trauma and tragedy. Like, the reality is we're all going through something of our own in our own life. Like, we are all going to experience tragedy, like Paden has. He may experience a tragedy again. Like, I may have a tragedy coming up for me in the future, despite what I've had in my past. Like, it's just a reality. And it's so sad to have, let something awful happen and not use it for good. Like, that is worse than anything, than sitting there and sulking in it. Of course, grieving and going through that process is different than 10 years later still, just playing victim to it. But yeah, I think that's just a big point of just like, man, like, what else is there to do? Like, you got to turn and try to use it for good. Like,
you're doing a disservice to, whoever is going through that struggle, whether it be yourself or, for my instance, it's, my little brother. You're doing a disservice to God as well by not, sharing that story, and turning it for good, like you said.
Yeah. I look at Tawny's dad. You know, like he's paralyzed. For those listening, my girlfriend's father, and he's paraplegic, and he's not a believer. Um, but he had a life altering accident happen, left him where he couldn't walk. He's in a wheelchair the rest of his life, and one of the most joyful guys you ever meet. Like
Okay.
he's got a smile on his face every day. He's wheeling around in his chair, and he's happy as ever. Like he's got a more positive outlook on life than 90% of people I've met. Like, and he's rolling around in a chair, and he can't even walk. Like, and I even look at the guy in the Chosen and in the Bible, obviously, in John, like that guy just laid around. Like, not that I don't think they had wheelchairs or whatever, but he just laid by this fountain that was supposed to save him if he could have been the first one there when it
Yep.
came up. And he just laid there, didn't do anything with his life despite his tragedy. And Jesus came and healed him, which is incredible. But like there's so much more to, if we take the eternal perspective as well, there's just so much more to it in this world than our limited minds are willing to like believe when these bad things are happening.
Amen.
Man, I'm looking through the comments about the best ones I want to pull up. One, this is simple. There is no God. Why can't humans accept that? Someone comments. We clearly know how we feel about that. Kin Chin. This type of garbage is why I left this stupid religion. Man. And this is the point I want to make. So I replied to this guy. And I used to love getting into internet beef and arguing. I don't love it as much anymore, as I've just matured. But this type of garbage is why I left this stupid religion. I reply to this guy and I say, so with your new beliefs, I take it bad things happen for no reason. And he said, sometimes yes, sometimes good things happen too. I said, it's hard for me to believe and things just happen because they do. His response doesn't even make much sense. But my whole point with this is when people tell me they aren't a believer or they aren't religious, whatever, I'm not religious either, but, I believe in God. When they tell me they aren't a believer, and my response to him, so you're with your new beliefs, because he said he left the religion, so he had the beliefs and he changed them, I guess. With your new beliefs, bad things happen for no reason. Like, so imagine that. Like, imagine if that was Paden's set of beliefs. He didn't believe in God. There was no creator, no plan, no heaven. And this tragic incident happens to his brother. Brother passes away. Like, what are you left with then? Like, what are you left with then?
Absolutely nothing to cling to.
Yeah, it's like you have nothing. You have no hope for a future. You have no hope for something beyond this world for your brother's life. You have no hope of seeing your brother again. Like, it's just you have no hope to even turn that tragedy into something good, because what are you going to point it to? Nothing. Right. Like, just happened. It is what it is, and you hear people say that, like, oh, it's just life. Yeah, okay, I can understand that, but it's like, you're able to use this tragic incident to point people to God, and just like, there's joy in our hearts still, even though we lost our brother and son. Like, there's still this joy in our hearts. How could that be? Well, it's Christ. And so it's like, it's a massive opportunity to point people to him. So for this guy, I won't even say his name. It looks like he's an anon, whatever. But, it's like, then what? Like, if you're someone who's maybe listening to this, I can't imagine there's any non-believers listening to this, but for someone who's maybe listening to this, maybe you're even on the fence of believing or not, it's like, what's the alternative? Like, I think there is infinite upside to believing in God and zero downside.
Dude, 100%.
Eternal life!
Absolutely.
God, I'm screaming.
I've heard that comparison so much. It's like for a Christian, like, what's the upside? Absolute eternity in the most perfect place. If God doesn't exist, what's going to happen? You lived a fulfilled life, a good life, living on very sound principles, right? For the opposite, I mean, what is it? You're living without anything to cling to.
Yeah.
And if it, God is real, which we totally believe, you're still going to a place of eternal suffering, I suppose. So, yeah, there's nothing to lose.
Yeah. Got this. This is one I don't know if we want to bring up right now. May need more preparation, but someone responded, "If I don't repent of my sins, I haven't had the salvation. Even I truly believe Jesus is my Lord. I live in a loving homosexual stable relationship." This person made a ton of spelling errors and
Oh
mistakes
my
in a
gosh, yeah.
reply. So I don't know. If I had to guess, I don't know if English would be their first language or not. But either way, we can still get their point. Um, and I'll give some takes on it. It doesn't really go to our question. It doesn't really make sense to even reply this to what I'm saying. But it's just fun picking through the comments, So basically, they're saying if I don't repent of my sins, I don't get saved, even if I believe Jesus is my Lord. And then they go on to say, I'm living in a loving, homosexual, stable relationship. So they're gay, which they obviously know is a sin.
Clearly.
And they're saying they're not repenting from being gay, but they believe Jesus is their Lord. But since their lack of repentance, they're not going to get saved. My answer was true belief in Jesus forces us to repent of our sins.
Sure.
And I don't think there's any argument there. Yeah. So I know we're kind of dancing around a political topic these days, but I think the truth is that being gay is a sin, and if you truly believed in God and truly believed Him your Lord and Savior, you would want that above all. It would even mean your sexual desires. The Bible tells us that people on this earth could have been put here to be single, to not be with anyone. So it's like that may be the reality for some people as well. Like there's so much sickness, and especially sickness in the way of sexuality in today's world. It's got people confused and far from God. So I don't know, anything you'd add to that? I know it doesn't even make sense with what we're talking about.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you do truly believe, either this person's a brand new believer and just haven't, felt the fruits of it yet, or, I mean, they actually don't believe that He's Lord.
Yeah. So we already talked about kids with disease. Somebody asked that. They said, can you drill a little deeper and address the question that some parents have as to God allowing some children with diseases that endure constant physical pain, seizures, etc., asking for a paternal brother who watched his daughter suffer for 35 years with grand mal seizures. Again, do we know why God didn't choose to heal her? No, we don't know why. But have that eternal perspective and use it for good. Use this as an opportunity to turn it for good. And I think that, we know God uses everything for good. And so I think people get stuck. And I think people get stuck in their bad because they just they're so close to the finish line of pushing through that grief, that remorse, whatever it is. With you losing your brother, let's say, you could be here 10 years later, still just carrying that hole of playing the victim of whatever. But here you are building in His name, and glorifying God throughout it. And I feel like people get stuck in that place of not letting go of that person that's passed away or that bad thing that's happened. And they miss out on the glory that could come from it. And I feel like that's why so many people also question God, is because they're stuck right there in that spot of, I'm not going to let my little brother go. In your case, I'm going to be mad at God if you were to continue to question God. Like, you've done a lot of work over the last 10 years in developing your understanding and perspective of God and your relationship with God. to be able to stand here today and share the way that you're sharing. It's not like when your brother died, you were young, but even for your parents' sake, like, they're still continuing their relationship with the Lord. So it's not like they just stopped and just said, we're done here. Like, we're stopping here.
Yeah.
Until I get an answer, I'm not looking for anything. I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm stuck right here. And I feel like so many people do that. And I think that's why they're missing their answer. That's why they're missing their peace. I don't know your perspective on that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, because when you're in it, like when my little brother was in the midst of his battle with cancer in the hospital, um, we didn't really have much of the picture of God's will. That's what I'm getting at here. And number one, God's will is perfect. That's what you have to have the faith of. You have to have the faith that God's will is perfect and that He uses all things for good, right? But the thing is, we'll never be able to understand the full picture. Sad thing is, like, majority of the time when you're in that hardship, the quote unquote bad thing, you probably won't see any of the picture. But I can tell you, like, since we chose not to sit in that, not to have that hole in our heart, to pursue God, we've been able to get small amounts of that picture and see the joy and see the good that's in the bad looking backwards. And what keeps us going even more is the fact that we only see a very small piece of this grand picture that God is putting together. And so you got to continue to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, we're even talking about, how this story and Cooper's name is going to be used to open millions of hearts. Like, so it's like you see the big vision and you've seen what it's done in small amounts so far. So I love what you're saying. Like, we can literally see that in real time right now with ourselves on here today talking about Cooper and his story. So
Absolutely.
yeah, like, and it gives you that light, man. It gives you that hope. And same thing for, like, with me, like with my, parents getting divorced, like dad being gone, like mom turned into a bottle and start drinking. Like, worst thing that ever could happen to a young kid. One of the worst things, like, and for me now, I'm like, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, best thing that ever could have come. Because here I am, and I'm extremely grateful to know the Lord. Like, I don't know if I would know the Lord if that would have happened. So, yeah. But we got more. I'm gonna go to the quote tweets now, which are good. I think we got some good stuff. Here's one I think was interesting. Bad things never happen to good people, as those who are truly virtuous and good to the maximal degree are never bothered about external conditions. They are fully surrendered to God and detached. They are peaceful. They are fully mastered themselves. Everything serves them. So they're saying that they're unwavered by, doesn't matter if tragic accidents happen, good people are unwavered by this. Doesn't matter. And everything serves them. And it's, good immediately in their mind. I replied, I said, the only person you're describing here is Jesus.
Yeah.
And the reason I replied that, I think I was even on the phone with Paden when I was talking about this one. But the reason I replied that is because he's saying, they're fully surrendered to God. I believe that is only Jesus. Fully mastered themselves, only Jesus. Like they're truly virtuous, only Jesus. So it's like Jesus, I think, is the only one who could have or did walk, experience bad. He still carried the emotion, which I think is really cool to understand. He was still sad. He still carried emotions, just like he was still a human, but he understood the bigger picture. And what we're talking about with Cooper, what we're talking about with eternal perspective, all this stuff is all about a bigger picture that's being operated out, and we don't necessarily understand. Jesus did, though. Jesus saw it. He knew. He understood because he was God. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that guy's quote tweet other than what I've said, I guess?
No, not really.
Cole, you want to pick out another one?
Yeah, I can only see 5 of the quotes. I don't know if you can see more.
I can only see 4, so you got more than me.
I really like this one. This isn't necessarily something we can dive into, but it's nowhere in the Bible does it tell us it's going to be easy. Nowhere. So buckle up, Buttercup, and get on with real Jesusing.
That's funny, man. Yeah. Yeah, and there's truth to that. Like the Bible isn't saying we're gonna be walking through, lily fields of lilies here on earth. Like Jesus didn't do that. Like that's something I put in my thread. Like the only perfect human to ever walk this earth got spit on, mocked, beaten beyond recognition, whipped,
Yep.
thorns smashed into his head, nailed on a cross, stabbed in the side. Like he got the worst of it. And he was the only perfect person. He was the only truly good person. So it's like God in the flesh came and did not experience the worst of the worst. So it's like, what do you expect, with your life? And of course, easier to just say this when you're going through a trauma, tragedy, and hard stuff. It's hard to swallow these pills and have this perspective. I get it. So, but you just have to continue on, continue fighting.
Amen.
I'll go with this one. Because Satan and his children are in charge of this world. So that's his answer. In Matthew 4, I think he meant Matthew 4. He said Matt 4, but I imagine that means Matthew 4. Satan tempted Jesus with, definitely Matthew 4. Satan tempted Jesus with all the kingdoms of the world. He couldn't do that if the kingdoms weren't his. Jesus' kingdom is in heaven, but soon he will be coming for his 1,000-year reign.
I mean, it does hold validity.
Yeah.
This is Satan's kingdom, and he, I don't know the verse of this, but he roams around like a roaring lion. I think that's the verse. So.
Yeah, it is. So I guess for anyone wondering, in Matthew 4, Satan tempts Jesus and he says, like, here are all my kingdoms. I will give you them if you worship me. Like he was trying to get Jesus to claim him as God, basically. And this guy's saying that how would, the Bible says it, so it's true. So how would Satan have these to offer Jesus if they weren't actually his? So, yeah. A lot of, like you're saying, a lot of validity, a lot of truth to that. I like it. I think I like it. I think I agree with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very interesting to consider. But Satan is definitely at work in this world. Like we are, it's a fine balance. I feel like I've heard a lot of different perspectives on Satan from pastors. And personally, like reading the Bible, I haven't read too much about like the devil, really. So, but from pastors, I've heard like some people say like, I know what you're saying. Like the devil is prowling around like a roaring lion, ready to like eat, kill, destroy, or whatever. And so it's like there is that. I've heard from pastors too that they're like one pastor down in Orlando. He was saying like the devil is not omnipresent. I think it's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
So the devil can't be everywhere at once. And so he was basically saying like we turn and we want to pin everything on the devil. He was kind of speaking to Christians who are like, oh, the devil's out to get me. The devil's attacking me. Like everything is the devil. He was like, everything in your life is not the devil. He's like, if we want to get biblical, he's like, the devil can't be in every place at once to be attacking you like that. So I don't know your thoughts on that specific point, but I've been wrestling with that for actually a long time of like, okay, like if the devil can't be everywhere, is it like other demons? Is it, what's like, is
I certainly believe there's other demons that the devil uses to operate with and fill out his plans. But I think my thoughts on that are I do believe that he's not omnipresent. I don't think he has that power. Only God does. But he does plant seeds to fulfill his evil plans that he does have. And then those seeds that grow and get trickled down into our lives, essentially, we choose to water them. Whether that be a temptation that he may plant years
Mm.
before, we may choose to water that, and it grows into an addiction to that what you have today. That's kind of my thoughts around it that I pondered on the past couple of months.
Yeah. And I think with those seeds, like, man, that's absolutely the truth. Like, I was talking to a friend just the other day, and he was just talking about how he was on a slippery slope with drugs and stuff. And, now he's back with God on fire for the Lord on 12 with the Lord. Should have heard this guy on the phone, but, um, but he literally was saying is like, here's how it started. It was this very small, opening to a drug, and then it just over time, next thing you know, here I am multiple days a week. Like, and so it's like these seeds do get watered, they do get planted, whether they're thoughts, whether they're in television, whether they're in, music or in books, whatever, like in people around you. I think that's a big thing. I think it's huge as to why the Bible says like we shouldn't be, unequally yoked with unbelievers. Like we shouldn't be doing that because it says like light has no negotiation with darkness.
Yep.
And so it's like when you are around these people, that behavior is just normalized. Sin is normalized. And those seeds, they get watered in your mind the more you see them.
Yep.
And the more that you deem them normal, whether the setting, no matter what setting that is in. So, yeah, I like what you're saying about the seeds. And the seeds go the other way as well. Like with God, like you reap what you sow. You're planting seeds with God as well. Like if you're like with this story with Cooper, like that's a seed that's being watered. That's going to continue to grow. You got a vision for what that's going to grow into from God. Like those are seeds that are being planted, being watered. So that seed could have gone the other way. Could have hit the infertile soil and never sprouted, and something else could have came up. The weeds.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I mean, both were at
So
work in that situation, the enemy and God, but we choose
yeah,
which ones to water.
yeah, dude, and it's I was even talking to same friend the other night, and we were just talking about discipline. Before we were both believers, we were friends, and we were into self development, and we would talk about discipline a lot. We would talk about these different things, and he was just saying like how basically none of it sticks until Jesus. And he's like, Jesus has been the glue for all the habits I've been trying to develop for the last 10 years. Whatever. Like Jesus is finally making these things stick. He's like, I knew I needed to be doing these things and having this discipline, yada, yada, yada. But he's like, it finally, like, Jesus is the glue. And I was kind of sharing with him, like, I think I haven't considered Jesus the glue. I've considered Jesus the way, like the vision for me.
Yep.
And it's like when I can see it, it makes it a lot easier to work for it. So that's why the habit is sticking. That's why I can go a lot longer than 2 weeks or 3. He was saying like all my habits, they were like 2 week sprints and then they fall off. And it's like when you can see a vision from God, like if you're chasing after Jesus, it's like that can make it stick. And that's what was for my mind, As believers, we all kind of have our own personal understanding, which is cool. Personal relationship.
For sure. One thing that comes to mind for me on that topic, like I've thought about this before. When I was just in self development, but not necessarily a strong believer, like I felt that in every book that I read, there were so many different principles or habits that I needed to apply to my life to reach this, better man, the next level. And even in the Bible, like if you took all the principles and the rules and the things you have to follow and apply to your life, like it's impossible. It feels like you're reaching and grabbing for so many different things. But in the case that we're supposed to apply to our life, which is just see Jesus, chase after that one vision, everything else will fall into place. All of these self-development habits that you are supposed to be grabbing and applying, like those are you're gonna apply those. You're gonna receive those essentially.
Yeah. And I think like building those habits and building those disciplines, incredible, but I think without Jesus, it's like building a boat without water. Like your boat may look stunning on the
Yeah.
shore, but you ain't putting it in the water to see what it's made of, like to actually run that thing, like to see it perform how it's supposed to. That was just an analogy that hit my mind.
That's good.
Yes, I think Jesus like is that water to that boat that we're building. But yeah, and another point I wanted to make with that was the discipline side of it, of the seeds. Something that's been really big on my mind lately is something that Petey shared about, the two people on either side of Jesus on the cross. One declares Jesus as Lord. One, if you're God, why are we nailed to this cross right now? You can't be God if we're about to die, Why do bad things happen to good people? That guy is sitting on that cross saying, hey, if you're God, why are we about to die? That's a big question there. But, Petey was saying, like, basically he throughout the Bible, he believes that those two guys, they had a ton of small decisions that led up to that big one that we see on the cross. The one guy, he made all the little decisions to practice discipline and faith that led him to be on a cross saying, you're my Lord. The other guy, not so much.
Yeah.
And so, I think about discipline, like planting the seeds and watering the seeds. Something I saw the other day, like that's in alignment with this. Like, you can't be upset with the work you didn't put in. Like if you're not going to put in the work, you can't be upset with the result, is what it's saying. Like, it's the same thing with faith. Like, Jesus is not saying that we're not going to experience these storms and these bad things, but you can't be upset if you didn't put in the work to try to build your faith before the tragedy hit,
100%.
If you don't have faith. So
good.
I think discipline, just the discipline playing a huge role in that. And that doesn't mean you're not going to be wavered. That doesn't mean you're not going to backslide. That doesn't mean you're not going to decline. Like, these things are tough. Life is hard, but we can prepare for them. So yeah. Anything else you want to unpack here? I feel like we've talked about a lot of stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I just want to double down on the fact that God's will is perfect. We'll never see the full picture and understand Him. If we did, there would be no point for God, right? You're a big movie watcher. I don't know if you've ever seen The Incredibles, but that the villain in the first one, he's like, and when everybody's super, then no one will be, right? I was thinking about that earlier. If we all had God's vision and God's will and understanding, like there would be no point. So
if everybody's super, no one will be. Is that movie still on like a 20-year long cliffhanger, or did they make a third? Was that a third one?
No, they made a second one.
Like, I remember like the guy coming out of the ground, and then like that was it or something.
Yeah, they made a second one, bro.
They like continue. I've probably seen it, honestly.
For sure.
I don't know. Maybe I need to watch Incredibles too, man.
The second one starts that way. It's coming out of the ground.
Yeah, that's sick. We like a movie that just carries on. That's cool.
Yeah.
Man, we're big movie guys. If you guys have listened this far, you must be a real one. So comment a movie we should watch.
Maybe we should start a movie podcast too.
That'd be fun. Let's talk about why we thought movies were. We'd have to get into it. That'd be a skill set though, analyzing a movie.
For sure.
Be a whole nother development, man. On that note, I'm like halfway through Passion of the Christ right now for the first time.
Let's go.
Yeah, and then Noah. Have you seen that movie anywhere?
I haven't. No.
Have you seen it like on platforms or anything?
I've seen some clips. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend about it. He said he didn't think it was very biblically accurate, but he said he still thought it was cool. So, I don't know.
Interesting.
To watch it for myself, but yeah, I think it'd be cool to watch. So I'm trying to line up some good TV with Jesus, man.
Absolutely. The third really good one is, I think it's just a 3-part series. I believe it's called The Bible. Just the Bible, and it's really good. Goes through all the main points.
There's a lot more faith-based movies than I realized. Like a lot of like Jesus movies and stuff. Like if you look it up, just like in any, like if you're on Netflix, whatever, Peacock, like Hulu, like any of the stuff, if you just search it up, like there's like Jesus or God or whatever, like you'll find a lot more stuff than you realize.
Man, it's crazy how they're not pushed as hard.
Yeah, they're
Pushed
buried. You
towards
got to go search them.
for sure.
Yeah. Oh man. On that note, I saw a. I know we're just kind of ranting here, but whatever. On that note, I saw a. It's like a Hallmark movie almost. I don't think it was Hallmark at all, but it was like a Hallmark movie. You know, kind of that just like love and
Yep.
Hallmark. But it was a gay couple. It was actually Sheldon off The Big Bang Theory.
Oh gosh, man.
He's the main star. But yeah, it was like I don't know the caption or whatever description like gay love story. And I was like,
You were watching this?
no, I just saw it on. I was flicking through looking for stuff and saw it. I watched the trailer though. Like if you just leave it highlighted, it'll just run the trailer for you. So I was like, I want to see what this is about, man. Dude, it's just it's pretty scary, honestly. Like if you think about media as to how they plant seeds, the devil plants seeds. We want to talk about seeds. That's the biggest way. And so
Yep.
if we are making it okay that these things are just being streamed like this and are just normal to have gay couples and trans people in movies, like what was that one with Tom Hanks? Otto or something? A
Yeah,
man called Otto.
a man named Otto. That's what it was.
Yeah, and they had that trans that like didn't got kicked out of his house for being trans and then showed up to Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks was made out to be this like really old, like conservative, like, hate everything type of guy. Like and then he lets this trans into his house, like and their whole thing is like, oh, it's breaking down barriers, like love and woo.
That's
Like
scary.
yeah, dude, it's just planting seeds, and I'm weary for the kids, man. That's what I worry about the most. Like
Yes.
we're adults, so we can whatever. Give me whatever. I don't care about myself. I'll watch and discern and delete my subscription all day. But kids, man, they don't know.
Dude, yes. Our generation specifically, I think, has a massive duty to ensure that this does not become normalized because, like, growing up, I think in our early childhood, like, it wasn't as normalized as it was today. But the kids growing up today that are 3, 4 years old right now, this is all they know. This is their reality. So we have an obligation to inform them on the truth.
For sure. And it's there's a movement happening, bro, like in our generation. There's no doubt about that. I've been seeing this I was talking to Ian about it, but I've been seeing Unite. You seen that at all? Like
Yep.
they're going around these college campuses. I think I saw like the University of maybe Georgia or somewhere. I don't know. But there were people getting like thousands of college students getting baptized in the bed of trucks. Like they put the plastic tarps in trucks and filled it with water. And they were baptizing like it was a worship in the stadium. And then after they went out in the parking lot and were baptizing people in the bed of trucks. I was like,
dude, gets me fired up. I'm getting chills right now. Come on. He's moving. Uh-oh. No, I mean, anybody that's watching and has a personal testimony on this example, maybe similar to mine, please share. We'd love to hear. Yeah. It's still recording. Oh, gosh. Mine says, when the recording is done, you may need to stick around a little to upload your high-quality recording. I don't know. Now, surely that doesn't mean stay in here. I have the ability to. Cool.